Hey everybody, how's it going? Happy Wednesday. We're here talking about electric violins, of course, always. It's what we talk about here. And one of the fun things for me about playing an electric string instrument is adding effects and making all the cool sounds and shapes and colors and textures and things that we can do with electric violins, violas, cellos, and upright basses. So we get a question a lot from people, can I use effects on my acoustic violin? And Joseph Shackelford, what's happening, man? Good to see you, buddy. We'll have to chat soon sometime. So the question we get from a lot of people is, well, what if I just got a pickup for my acoustic instrument? Can I still use effects on that instrument? And we got a lot of stuff to talk about. We are really, really lucky today. We're really lucky. We got Shauna Tucker here with us today, and she is an acoustic cellist. Come on in. She plays electric cello, but primarily acoustic with a pickup.
Oh yeah, it's primarily acoustic. Yes.
And you use effects.
I do use effects.
So talk a little bit about, I'm going to move the camera for you. Talk about some of the challenges that you encounter with that.
Yeah, I think for me, the challenges are always about expectation. Like, do I expect to sound completely distorted, or expectation, and what is the goal? If my goal is, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to y'all. Hey, what's up? If the goal is to introduce a different contour or a different profile to my acoustic experience, which it's been my experience that also offers a sort of element of surprise, because there's a familiarity of acoustic cello, but then there might be some, I don't know, a little distortion maybe, where people are like, what's this? Is she doing that? What's happening there? And then I have the option of turning it up, but there's these by default automatic levels of acoustic with whatever the effect is on there. And I personally love that because I need to hear my cello, and I'm not used to hearing cello with just pure effects. Did I answer your question? Get back in here.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to have to bend.
So what else?
I need to just
Good
get
times.
a step stool, whatever.
That's right. Well, that's all right. We have an adjustable camera. It's all good.
Oh, the expectation. This is what I wanted to say. When I just want to hear effects, then I will use my NS cello, because then it's more about what is a bowed distortion or a bowed effect sound like. Then what we're talking about is not the acousticness of cello sound. It's bow, pits, effects.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, period.
Now you got other places to be.
I do. Thank you for letting me say these things. I'm going to go now. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you, Shauna. So, she's going to be back around a little bit every now and then when we can get her, when she's not out on tour. So, yes, this question, yes, we're actually live right now. So, everything's good. So, the question I think that we were talking about is, can I use, here's the question again. Is it? Here it comes, maybe. Press the wrong button. Can I use effects on my acoustic violin? Which is a great question. And the answer is yes and no, kind of. The first thing when you say, can I use them on my acoustic violin, clearly you're going to need a pickup or a mic, because we've got to get that sound converted into electricity so we can feed it to your processor, to your pedals, to your amplifier, and all that stuff. So you're going to need a pickup and or a mic. And we've talked about this in other places, but just very quickly, a microphone captures vibrations from the air near the instrument, and a pickup captures vibrations from the physical instrument itself, from the wood or whatever they made your violin out of. If you've got a concrete violin, then it'll be from the concrete. I don't think anybody's done that yet. That'd be weird. It'd be heavy. So the pickup captures vibrations from the instrument itself, and a mic captures vibrations from the air. Now, why would I pick one over the other? The mic is going to sound more like what you hear with your ear because your ear is gathering vibrations from the air. It's the same thing the mic does. The pickup is going to be more isolated. That mic, when it's sitting next to your violin or your cello, if you're a Shauna, that mic can hear your instrument, yes. It can also hear the drummer who's 6 feet away. It can hear the dishes and stuff clanking out there if people are eating. It can hear you breathing or talking. That mic can hear all that stuff. Pickups, a whole lot less. So we would say that the signal coming from a pickup going to your processor is going to be a lot cleaner. It's going to be a lot more isolated. It's not going to be picking up all this other stuff. And those other things can sometimes confuse the processor if it's trying to do pitch correction or if it's trying to do, I don't do a lot of pitch correction. If it's doing pitch shifting or distortion, any of those other things can really confuse that processor if it's hearing things other than your instrument. So mics do probably sound more natural if you're not running a lot of effects. A pickup is going to be a much more isolated signal if you're running some more complicated effects. Also, a mic is much more likely to feedback. And like I said, a pickup is going to work better with most effects. So when we talk about acoustic versus electric, an acoustic violin or cello or viola makes a sound, that's the whole point of the acoustic instrument, that you and your audience can hear. So if I'm playing on a stage, there's maybe 50 people in the room, I'm playing my violin, even if I'm plugged in, you can still hear the instrument because it's making sound. Now, probably it's not loud enough for this room, which is why I have it plugged to an amplifier, but you can still hear the instrument. So you're going to hear the instrument and you're going to hear the amplifier. An electric violin is much, much quieter. You can hear it under your ear if you're at home or something, but if you're on a stage with other musicians, it's going to be really hard to hear that instrument even under your ear. And the people in the audience basically can't hear it. You could have a very, very quiet situation where the entire audience is sitting there with their hands folded. This doesn't happen for me. But if the audience is sitting there very, very quiet with their hands folded, they might be able to just hear some string sound if they're in the front row. But essentially 100% of what they're hearing with a solid body electric like these, it's what's coming out of the speaker. That's kind of the biggest difference between an acoustic with a pickup and a solid body electric. And that's what's going to lead to all these other things that we're going to talk about. So again, in a very small venue, your audience is going to hear the instrument and the sound from your amplifier. Even on a loud stage, you're still going to be able to hear your violin sometimes. You know, if we sort of go to a breakdown, you know, if they break it down, that instrument, all of a sudden, you're going to be able to hear it. And the vocal mics that are nearby you are going to be able to hear it. So if you're doing something really crazy with your effects and you don't want people to hear the raw sound of the instrument, they're going to hear the raw sound of the instrument from time to time, even on a fairly loud stage, and all that. I have not read this question all the way. I will get to that question, Michael, in a few minutes. I'll throw it up on the screen and answer it. So I'm going to try to stay, so my brain doesn't wander off. I'm going to try to stay on topic for a few minutes here. I sort of divide effects into two different camps, and I call them additive effects and transformative effects. Additive effects are the ones that include the sound of your violin and they add to it, hence the name. So that would be something like reverb. We're still going to hear the acoustic sound of your instrument, more or less, at least the picked up acoustic dry sound of the instrument, and we'll hear an effect along with it. A transformative effect does not generally include the raw sound of your instrument. It is, we have processed this signal beyond like just surface. It is a 100% processed signal, okay? And I'll give some examples. The examples of additive effects, like I said, would be reverb, delay is another one of those, and harmony. So be aware that your audience experience is going to vary depending on your overall volume and or how far away from you they're sitting. So if a person's sitting close to me and where I'm sitting, the amp and the violin are roughly the same volume, say my monitor's pointing back at me, a person sitting right next to me is going to hear the violin and the amp at roughly equal levels. But a person who's sitting farther back where maybe the main speakers are throwing out, they're going to hear mostly just the speakers. So the audience experience is going to vary a little bit depending on how loud you are, how far they are away from you. And this is the case with acoustic instruments with pickups on them, right? So I've got a couple of videos here and where I'm going to play using some different effects. And we captured, I used a mic in the room to capture the raw sound of the instrument. I used the pickup to capture the direct sound. And then we put some effects on that pickup. And then I blended them in a different way. At the beginning of the video, it is largely, it's like if we're in a pretty big room and most of what you're hearing is the speaker and a little bit is the violin. And then we change it to where the speaker and the violin are about the same level. And then we change it to where it's mostly violin and a little bit speaker. And it'll be up on the screen. You'll see it. You'll also see which effect I'm using. So there's 3 videos coming. Three videos coming. And yeah, let's listen to those. Okay, so that was fun. I think you could probably tell, especially with stuff like the delay, as you are changing the ratio of dry sound to affected sound. If I'm playing on stage and I've got the instrument under my ear, most of what I'm hearing is going to be the instrument, and a little of what I'm hearing is going to be what's coming out of the speaker. Now, my audience might be the other way around. They might mostly be hearing speaker and some of the violin. So if I'm adjusting my effects to where they sound good to me, right? So I turn up the delay to where I'm sounding, it sounds like a sufficient amount of delay. They're getting way too much out there, or they're getting, I don't know if there's too much. They're getting more. They're getting a lot more than I'm getting. So they may be hearing a very different show than I think they're hearing. And that could be, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. I don't know if it's good or bad. It's just a thing. So as long as you're comfortable with your audience hearing something different than you're hearing, yeah, go for it. So the next thing, and I will get to all these questions in a few minutes. we will talk about transformative effects now, pitch shifting, distortion, and synth effects. Some of these you may want to actually blend in some dry signal, and you can do that on a lot of effects pedals. But with an acoustic, you have less control. You can't ever get to zero of your dry signal because at least you are going to be able to hear the instrument under your ear. Even if you're playing for Garth Brooks and you're filling a whole stadium full of people, Jimmy Mattingly can still hear his fiddle under his ear at least a little, even when he's got in-ears in. The bone conduction, all that, like the thing's making noise. He is getting some amount of audio information off of that fiddle, even if the audience is only hearing those massive speakers that he's playing through. And if you haven't gone to see Jimmy with Garth Brooks, you should, because he's an amazing player. They put on a great show, and it's a lot of fun. So let's listen to some more of these videos. Oh, wait, I said, yeah, pitch shifting. I said harmony was additive and pitch shifting is transformative. How does that work? Harmony is when a new pitch is blended with a clean sound. Say, like in that video that we watched, I had set that to a G major. It's funny, I played some G minor stuff in there too, which is why you might have gotten a weird note or two. But I set it to G major, and then I think a third up from the pitch that I played. So when I play an open G, you hear the open G that I played, and you hear the B natural that's above that. Pitch shifting is when the original note is not heard. So I play with Mikhail Buck every now and then, the Mikhail Buck Band. If you don't know those guys, check them out. He's kind of a Texas red dirt country guy. He's from West Virginia, lives in North Carolina, plays Texas a lot. I'm going to try to squeeze one more state into this description if I can. So they tune their guitars to E flat instead of E. So they tune a half a step down, and then they capo one about 2/3 of the night. So they're actually in standard tuning more than half of the night, but sometimes they take that capo off, and we might have a tune in G flat. And that's fine. I can play in all 12 keys. I'm not particularly fond of playing red dirt country in G flat because you really kind of live and die by those open strings that you're dragging around. And it would be a lot easier if I just had a fiddle that was tuned down a half a step. But I'm lazy and I don't feel like carrying two fiddles with me and then switching back and forth the whole time. So I just use a pitch shifter. I just shift my whole pitch down a half a step sometimes. And it's actually weird because sometimes I will not pitch shift down for the comping. I'll just play in G flat for the comping. But then they're like, hey, take a solo. And I'm like, press F in the chat. No, I'm not going to take a ripping solo in G flat. Maybe I should practice more, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to hit the pitch shifter button. So I'll shift down to shift my violin down a half a step and rip a solo and then go back to playing in G flat because I'm lazy. So that pitch shifting, if you've got an instrument like a Viper that's not really providing any audio feedback for me, then the only thing I'm hearing and the only thing the audience hearing is what's coming out of the speaker. You can shift the whole violin up a half a step, down a half step, whatever you want to do. So that's pitch shifting. Harmony is when you add a note to your sound. So the next thing, I think I just said that. Yeah, if I was playing an acoustic electric violin and I were to shift my pitch down a half a step, my brain would explode. So that would be, well, it'd be good for some people, but it'd be bad for me. So let's listen to a pitch shifting video. I thought about ending that video early because it's like, hey, we get the point. But if I have to listen to it, you have to listen to it. So, yeah, that's what happens if you try to use pitch shifting. Got to be careful not to cuss on the air. Pitch shifting with an acoustic violin with a pickup on it. That's what happens. even if the speaker is really loud, I'm probably going to at least be able to hear a little bit of that actual sound under my ear, and it's like nails on a chalkboard. That would be very bad. Let's talk about distortion. This is the thing that always makes Matt smile. There's dangers of distortion. That'd be a great band name. The Dangers of Distortion. Hey, everybody, where are the dangers of distortion? We'll be here every Thursday and Friday night. Be sure to tip your waitresses and your bartenders. Awesome. Distortion is an extreme form of compression, and compression is one of those things that makes you much more susceptible to feedback. And that's like the bane of every acoustic violinist's existence. Can you use distortion, though? Yes, you totally can. Zach Brock uses it with Snarky Puppy all the time. They are a very loud band. They're not like Green Day loud, but they're loud. They're louder than your church band by a whole lot. Yes, you can use distortion on an acoustic violin, but you have to use countermeasures because if the violin can hear the signal that's coming up, it's going to squeal like a banshee. It's going to be crazy. One of the things you can do is you can use in-ear monitors, and that's going to make sure you don't have a speaker sitting right underneath your violin that's hammering it with this distorted signal, because I don't care which pickup you got on there, it's going to feed back. So in-ear monitors help. And if you find yourself in a situation where you don't have in-ear monitors or you're forced to use a wedge and the thing's feeding back like crazy when you use distortion, you may have to dial back that gain level, just because it do be like that sometimes. There you go. And you could hear at the end, you could hear that distortion kind of ringing out after the instrument had stopped. So one of the dangers of using distortion is that distortion actually does stuff. So that it's not just, hey, let's throw some distortion on and then rock out. We'll play some Bach and we'll rock out. You don't just throw distortion on and that creates a rock situation. Rock is an attitude. If you don't have that attitude, you just sound like a distorted classical player. But that's a mini rant. So what happens is distortion actually creates other sounds, and you either are going to maybe be inspired by those sounds or do something to stop them or do something to continue them if you can hear them. So then you and the distortion are interacting with each other, and that's a beautiful thing. That's art. If you cannot hear the distortion, then you're not going to interact with it, and then it kind of sucks. So the problem with that is if your audience is hearing all this distorted violin, and you're just hearing la 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 la, and you're not reacting to that distortion, then you're not maximizing the full potential of that effect. So that makes me sad. The next thing, Megan, thanks you for all these comments. I'm going to answer some of these, or I don't even know if these are questions, but I'll read them thoroughly and comment on your comments very soon. The last one I've got is a synth video. Synth is another little piece of funness. for my money, I like it when the synth is very, very prominent. If the synth is not very prominent, like if the audience is hearing a fair amount of acoustic violin and they're hearing synth, that kind of sounds like dog crap. The two of those blended together, it just sounds like there's something buzzy on my violin, and that's bad. In my opinion, that's bad. You might like it. I don't know. And if you do like it, then by golly, you go out there and do it. So yeah, that's where I'm at on all that stuff. If you guys have questions, put them in here. Let's go back and get some of these comments. Let's see. Do I use it? Oh. All right. So first, I don't know if Joseph Shackelford is still here. Joseph is my brother in more ways than one. Joseph, if you're still here, holler at me later, man. I'd love to talk to you. If you guys don't follow Joseph Shackelford, this dude is ridiculous on a violin. You should be following him. He's a boss. He's a really cool guy, and he's a lot of fun to listen to. He's a lot of fun to hang out with. So, yes. Yes, we are actually live. I don't know if we are or not. Some of you may be watching this at 3:25 Eastern on November 8th, 2023. In that case, we are live. If you are watching this after that time, then we were live. We're probably still live, just somewhere else. Because these videos actually do archive. So I tell people, they're like, oh man, I'm not going to be able to catch your live stream. Like, you can watch it later. It's going to stay up on the internet. The internet's forever. It's going to stay up on the internet. But you just won't be able to ask questions that I'll be able to respond to in real time. Mr. McCleary, what's happening? For being transparent, I don't know how else to be. I'm going to be truthful to a fault. With distortion example, bass simulator doesn't play well on the acoustic. Yeah, so there are some things that distortion's funny, man. Distortion, and there's a zillion distortions out there. Some of them seem to do better with certain pieces of equipment than others. The distortion that sounds great on one violin may sound like dog doo on the other one. And then sometimes through different speakers, I've actually discovered, and I haven't messed with this in a long time, but I had kind of inadvertently discovered one night I was using a Baggs DI, a Baggs Paracoustic DI. And with my clean sound, it sounded great. I had it at the end of my signal chain because I was running a wireless. I didn't need the preamp part of it. I was just using it as a tone shaping DI. At the end of my signal chain, if I was running a clean sound, it sounded great. When I tried to run a distorted sound into that Baggs, it like ate it or something. There was a character to my distorted sound that was really good without the Baggs, and it was really bad with the Baggs. The Baggs absolutely changed the sound of my distorted tone, and not in a way that made me happy. So yeah, every piece of gear is going to be different, and that's kind of half of the fun of this thing is the experimentation and just chasing down, what is it that works and gets me the sound that I want. People will often call me up and ask me, what are the settings I should use on this or that? And man, I can maybe give you an answer, but to an extent, there's no shortcutting the process of exploring these things for yourself. And I wish I could teach you all the things you need to know in a video, but you just can't. There's so important to go through the process of battling through and failing and succeeding and partially succeeding and partially failing and getting better and getting worse and battling through to figure this stuff out for yourself. We can teach a lot of things. Yeah, there are a lot of things that I learned the hard way that you can learn the easy way. But there are certain things that you're going to have to learn it the hard way. And that's not bad. That's great, because you're going to be a better player and a better artist for having gone through that process. And you may inadvertently discover some things that you're like, I was looking for a tone for this one song and it wasn't working. I didn't create the thing I wanted for that song. But when I listened to it later, I was like, ooh, I hate it for that song, but I actually could use this over here. That's how a lot of great discoveries are made. When you're looking for one thing and you accidentally find another, you're like, let me set that aside because I will come back to that. And it's a lot of fun. Ray Ortega, what's happening, man? How would I rate the K&A cello pickup? High. In most cases, you get what you pay for. And if you see two products and they're similar products and one of them costs more, there's usually a reason for that. Usually it's better. Like the reason that thing costs $400 and the other one costs $200 is because the $400 one is better. That's how that works. Sorry, I have tuberculosis. Not really. It might be SARS. So if generally you get what you pay for, the K&A pickups like totally violate that law. They are some of the cheapest pickups out there that are decent. Like you guys are going to find these little $5 Amazon pickups. Leave them there. You practiced way too long to trust your tone to something that costs $5. Just don't. And I will beg you, not just for your sake, but for mine. Because the problem is you guys buy these $5 pickups and they sound like, I've already used the phrase several times. They sound like dog do, okay? They sound really bad. And people are going to hear you and go, oh, that's what electric violins sound like? Yeah, I'm out. So then Matt Bell's out there trying to advertise a concert, electric violin concert. And people are like, no, I heard an electric violin, I'll pass. So Tracy Silverman's actually the one that turned me on to that school of thought. Yeah, do all of us a favor, do the whole community a favor, and don't spend $5 on a cheap pickup from Amazon. You're hurting all of us. But of the decent pickups, the ones that, probably $90 or more, the K&A is one of my favorites. And I like it as much as I like some of the much more expensive pickups. I don't know what they did. Some sort of arrangement with an alien or something. I don't know. But their pickups sound great. Yeah, I love them. Texas Forever. Yep. Where are we at? Here we go. Here's one I want to get to. My Barbera 5-string acoustic. You have a Barbera acoustic. We had one of those in here, and I was so excited. I was like, this is going to be the best of both worlds. It's going to be the Barbera pickup, and it's going to be the acoustic resonance and all that. And yours might be different from the one we got. I hated it. It wasn't the best of both worlds. It was the worst of both worlds. It was too resonant. Like the Barbera, I think needs to sit on something solid because it's so meaty itself. And it's sitting on this little thin piece of wood, and it sounded thin. I didn't like the sound of it. It sounded too thin to be a Barbera. And then the acoustic sound of the instrument, like you said, the acoustic sound of the instrument was horrible because you've got this friggin' plank sitting on top of the instrument, and it's not transmitting the vibrations into the body that the body was designed to receive. I hated it. I was really excited when we got it. Oh, sweet, an acoustic with a Barbera. Yours might be better, but I hated this one. So there's that transparency again. Sorry. Yes, absolutely. That's the whole deal about synth. Like it is supposed to be a very transformative effect. If it is additive, I don't think it sounds good. I think it sounds like a bee or something. Oh yeah, it was. I wanted to get to this one. I should officially get a free electric violin for being the first to chat. I wish that were the case, because I would beat y'all to the chat every time, and I would have even more violins than I do. Because I would just go live in the middle of the night when nobody knew. Oh, free violin! I would feel all spicy. Any advantages? Oh wait, here we go. The Wood family. Ooh, I'm intrigued. Oh, not that Wood family. I was thinking the Mark Wood family. I got all excited. Why not just buy a second violin and use effects on electric violin? Okay, so yeah, great question. Sometimes there are budgetary reasons why people put a pickup on their acoustic violin. We get a lot of, especially younger people that haven't made a lot of money yet playing music. They're just getting started. So they're like, hey, I want to get an electric violin. My budget's $100. I'm like, yeah, I got really bad news. The cheapest solid body electric violin that I would feel good about selling you is about 7 times that much. So if you have $100 and you want to go electric, put a pickup on the violin you've got, make some money doing that. And then if you still want an electric, then come buy an electric. I actually do own a room full of violins, and yeah, I pick the violin I pick the tool that's right for the job. That's why mechanics have these massive toolboxes rolling around, because like you can use a pair of pliers to take off a bolt, but it's not the best tool for the job. A wrench would be a better tool for that job. So I can use an acoustic with a pickup if I want to run some heavy effects. It's not the best tool for the job, but if it's the only tool I've got, if I'm out in the field and the only tool I've got in my hand is a pair of pliers and I have to get a bolt apart, I can do it. That pair of pliers is a pretty useful tool. It can do a lot of different things. You can use it as a hammer if you have to. It wasn't designed for that, and it's not the best tool for pounding a nail. You can. So that's how I feel like if you have one instrument and it's an acoustic with a pickup and you want to use effects, probably not the best tool for the job, but you can do it. And then the reason that a lot of people like Zach Brock, the reason he uses an acoustic with a pickup is because most of the time he's running a pretty clean acoustic tone and he wants that real acoustic type sound. He wants to hear the thing under his ear. And that is the best tool for the job most of the time. And then every now and then when he wants to do something a little more out there, it's good enough for doing what he wants to do. If running effects is a thing he does 10% of the time, then the acoustic with a pickup is fine. And he's a brilliant dude and an incredible player. He makes it work. It would be easier, to just have two violins, to have an acoustic and an electric, and then you just switch back and forth. And, Jesus Florido tours with 5 different violins for exactly that reason. Are there any advantages of using an acoustic violin with effects? Yeah, because especially with reverb and delay, you still have that really acoustic sound that a lot of people really want. They really want to hear that wooden, organic, transparent. Maybe it's not the right sound. I don't know. There's what word? That acoustic sound. People want that acoustic violin sound, and then they just want to maybe use some additive effects with that. Is there an advantage to using it with transformative effects? No, absolutely not. What are my thoughts? I definitely have thoughts. What are your thoughts on these fretboards that you can buy and stick to your fingerboard for electric violins? I think it's better if you want frets and you don't have the ability to buy a fretted violin from a financial standpoint or whatever. I would say that the stick-on thing that goes to your fingerboard, it's better if you want frets and you don't have the money to buy a fretted instrument. It's better than just sitting there wishing you had one. You have to be a little bit careful with those things. Also, I don't know if they make a 5-string version of that little fretboard you can buy and stick on there. As far as I know, they only make 4 strings, and I avoid 4 strings if I can. It's been done. I'm trying to do 5 and 6. But yeah, I think it's if you want frets and you don't want to buy a fretted instrument, I think it's totally worth trying. The worst thing that can happen in that situation is you put it on your violin, you don't like it, and you take it off. And you have to kind of clean up the stuff off your fingerboard, but that ain't the end of the world. So yeah, it's worth trying if you're trying to kind of figure it out. Can I kind of talk about it? That's all I do is kind of talk about stuff. Can you kind of talk about how to do distortion without pedals or pickups on the acoustic? I can. Rachel does a class on this, and Rachel does a great job of showing. Here's an acoustic. Here's an acoustic instrument. It's the one I was using in the video. It's a Bridge Golden Tasman. Really like these. Woo! It's in tune too. So what does Rachel do? She comes up here. See where I'm at on the bridge with the bow here? She gets right up here. So we can get a distortion type sound up there. Here's you're going to have a really hard time, unless you're Rachel Martin Pine, which you're not, and I'm not. And don't feel bad because there's one, and she's in Chicago. You're going to have a hard time doing the things that you can do with a pedal. That's why they have pedals. If it was possible to do it without a pedal, you wouldn't need a pedal. But yeah, you can get right up on the bridge. You can get some pretty heavy distortion sound. She's a lot better at it than I am because she cares about it. I'm not used to playing all the way up there. But yeah, you can. And it can get a distortion E type sound, but it don't sound like it's running through a German Überschall amp. It's not going to sound like that. So you can make it, it can be reminiscent of distortion and it can be distorted. But man, there's something about a tube that you just can't do here. But yeah, if I'm playing my acoustic and I want to sort of have that distorted attitude, and I want to have some, a little bit of extra, a little bit of defiance in my playing. Yes, that can be done with the bow and the string, and you can also, too much pressure. You can get some distortion like that too. Good question. Eduardo, do you think a string quartet can sound good with pickups instead of gooseneck mics? Yeah, absolutely. You can sound good. Now, a pickup is not going to sound like a mic because a pickup is not a mic. So I always love it. People are like, I want a pickup that sounds like a mic. But yeah, I want $1 million. But I can't make it happen just by wanting it. Laws of physics are not in your favor. There are a couple of products. There used to be one called what was it called? I'm blanking. It's what happens when you get on live. Tone Dexter. Whew, I did it. There was a product called the Tone Dexter that was designed for guitars. It was designed for acoustic guitars because there's way more of them than there are of us, which I guess is good. But they would take the acoustic instrument and set it in front of a mic, and then they would plug it in, an acoustic-electric. They would plug it in. They would record the sound of the direct sound, and they would record the acoustic sound of the instrument, do some math, sort of figure out what the mathematical difference between those two signals were, and then it would add that delta, that difference between the two signals to your plugged-in sound. And what that would do is it would make your plugged-in sound a whole lot more like a mic. I think Tone Dexter's out of business. You might still be able to find an old Tone Dexter pedal. We carry the, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. It is called the, let me grab it. Stand by. It is called the Voice Print DI by LR Baggs. It does essentially that exact same thing. It is designed to work with an acoustic guitar, and it's designed to work with your iPhone. And it is an iPhone because the iPhone mic is a known mic, and there's 18,000 different Android mics. So it works with your iPhone, and you set your iPhone on a table in front of you, and then you plug in your pickup. And you play, and it listens to the sound of your pickup, and then it listens to the acoustic sound of your instrument in the room. And then because it knows what an iPhone mic, it knows what the characteristics of an iPhone mic are, so it's not going to sound like an iPhone mic coming out of the PA. But it calculates the difference between the acoustic sound and the plugged-in sound. That's the delta, the difference, and then it applies that mathematical difference to your plugged-in signal. And it works pretty good. It actually will make your pickup sound more like a microphone. But you'd be surprised, even if you just use a nice pickup, I'd say K&A or any of the Schertler pickups or the Fishman pickups, Bags pickups. There's good pickups out there. If you use those pickups and you know a little bit of something about EQ and you put a nice warm reverb on that thing, it's going to sound fine. It's going to sound fine. Believe me, 99% of the people in your audience will not know the difference between a pickup sound and a mic sound. And especially if there's nothing to A/B it against, right? They're not going to sit out in their car and listen to this lush Ross Holmes recording that was done in a Nashville studio with 37 of the greatest mics in history and one of the best engineers in the world. They're not going to sit in their car and listen to that acoustic violin sound and then walk into the room and go, oh, well, that sounds much more like a piezo pickup to me. And if they are, you don't want to play for them anyway. So nobody's going to A/B your pickup sound against the mic sound. You can get a very, very satisfying sound with a pickup and a good preamp and some EQ and a nice warm reverb, maybe a touch of delay on there. Not enough for anybody to really go, oh, there's delay on here, but enough to just kind of fatten it up a little bit. Yeah, I think your string quartet would sound amazing with that. So that's what I think, but who cares what I think? What is my most used tool for gig jobs? If you're talking apart from the instrument, I'm a Helix guy. So most, it's all plugged in. I'm not going to pick it up right now. But if it's a fairly simple job where I'm not doing a bunch of tap dancing, then my current rig, which is I call my fly rig, is an HX Stomp, a wireless, and then I've got room on the pedal board for one outboard pedal, and it depends on the job which one I'm going to take with me. So the HX Stomp is doing all the heavy lifting. If I'm doing one of my academic concerts, like the master's degree type thing, or I'm playing with Spare Change, the band that I used to play with full time, and I'm going to be doing a lot of effects changing. Like I'm going to have to be tap dancing a lot tonight, changing effects like from measure to measure or any of that kind of stuff. Then I will use the full Helix floor. They're big and they're heavy. And when I had roadies, I didn't care. I don't have roadies anymore, so now I care. And it takes up a lot of space. So if it's a very, very complicated gig from a technical standpoint, then I'll use the full Helix. If it's a fairly simple job, then I use the HX Stomp. And those things are insanely powerful. Trevor Dick is the man. I love Trevor. What a fantastic human being. And an excellent player, and he is the host and I guess moderator of the Electric String Players Forum on Facebook. I don't know, like lately social media is really kind of become a horrible place. The Electric String Players Forum, the Electric String Players Forum on Facebook is one of the happiest places on the internet. It's heavily moderated. Trevor don't put up with no BS on there. And it's all electric strings all the time. And God, there's more than 10,000 people on there now. I can't remember how many people are on there, but a lot. All over the world. Fantastic players that you can ask questions of. There are people that are all over the world that are doing a million different things. So, I mean, like anything, if you ask 5 different violinists a question, you're going to get 6 opinions. But it's a really fantastic place. And Trevor is the guy that's in charge of the Electric String Players Forum on Facebook. Highly recommend. And Trevor's a fantastic person. Comes down to bowing techniques sometimes. I think maybe talking about the distortion on the acoustic violin. Yes, absolutely. Now, believe it or not, Rachel Barton Pine does use tubes. She had a metal band called Earth and Grave. And if you really want to have your face melted off, go check out some of the videos of her playing with Earth and Grave. She doesn't own a bunch of tube amps. She doesn't own any tube amps as far as I know. But Chuck Bontrager owns all of the tube amps, and Chuck lives not too far from Rachel. And so he was teching for her for most of those shows. And Rachel is up there with like 2 or 3 half stacks behind her, like completely blasting the guitar player off the stage because she's Rachel and she has access to Chuck. And if you had access to Chuck, you'd have a lot of amps too. Oh, fantastic. So yeah, we've never carried the Tone Dexter. I haven't personally messed with them much, but I know a bunch of guys who have, and like people who I respect, and they really, really like the product. I don't need it because I mostly play solid body and I use IRs to get kind of that acoustic type sound if I want it. So, should talk about pedal boards with Trevor. Absolutely. You know, we did. If you go back and listen to there's a couple times we've talked to Trevor. Once was when we interviewed him for the Rockstar Violinist podcast. Haven't put out a new episode on that in several years, kind of retired that podcast because there's other people doing that. Christian Howes has a great podcast. Tracy Silverman has a great podcast. Trying to think who else is doing those things. But yeah, the Rockstar Violinist podcast, we interviewed Trevor for that podcast and talked a lot about effects. And then we did a video interview with him, I don't remember, a while back. But he talked about effects and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, Trevor's amazing. New to the electric string players page. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I would say there's a lot of great advice there. There's some of the other kind of advice there, but that's how it is. You know, some of it's good, some of it's bad. I think the overwhelming majority of the advice you get there is good. Probably one of my pet peeves on that page, and I can say this out loud, is that when somebody will ask a question and go like, hey, what pickup should I use on my acoustic violin? People don't ask any questions. They just go, well, I use a realist. Okay. I don't know anything about what you do. I don't know if what you do is the same as what I do. I don't know if we play the same. I don't know if we're going through the same equipment. I don't know what your expectations are of that. So generally I respond with a bunch of questions. You know, what's the best pickup for my acoustic? I have no idea. I need more information. So what do you want it to do? What kind of amp are you playing through? What kind of sounds do you want? Are you wireless? Are you using effects? Are you playing with a funk band? Are you playing with a worship band? Like what's going on? I need more information before I can answer your question. So that's one of my pet peeves on there is that sometimes people, they have a thing and because they have it, it must be the best. Because somebody told them it was the best. They've never tried anything else, but theirs is the best. So sometimes people the people who respond to a simple question with an answer, like your antenna should go up. I don't know. Do they really have enough information to answer this question that confidently? And then occasionally you'll get people who are just wrong. You'll see stuff, you know, what should I do in this situation? And somebody will suggest something. You're like, that's the opposite of what you should do in that situation. But, you know, you'll probably get 10 more pieces of advice that will point you away from that. So I don't know. It's a wonderful forum. I love it. I spend a ton of time there. I wouldn't take every piece of advice I get there, but a lot of it. And the people are super kind for the most part. And Trevor does a really nice job of moderating that. And yeah, I'm super, super thankful for that forum. It's one of my favorite places. Whew, we have gone almost an hour and you can hear my voice falling apart. I was at a North Carolina Music Educators Association conference this past weekend. And I have a side gig. I have a company that I own that has an app out for teaching music theory. And my business partner and I were at NCMEA telling people about this app. It's called Note Nerd and you should get it. But that's an aside. So I'm in a room full of people that are talking and I'm projecting over these people all day and my voice is blasted. So I'm probably going to go home and I'm not going to talk for a day or two. And my children will be very thankful for that, I'm sure. So yeah, all that to say, I'm probably going to get out of here because my voice is disintegrating as we speak. I will see you guys next week. Oh, by the way, I do have energy enough for this. The Treble Notes are in the United States right now. They are a band that has gained a lot of notoriety in Europe for busking. If you look up the Treble Notes, Bennett Servin is the violinist. He was a guest on a video we did a few years ago on busking. And fantastic band, fantastic players, super nice dudes. They're spending the night at my house this week because they've got a gig in DC and then they've got a gig in like Charlotte or something. They're going to be coming through here. Hopefully we'll get Bennett into the shop, try out a bunch of violins, maybe shoot some video. And that's going to be a lot of fun. And so I'm very excited about it. And because I'm excited about it, you should be excited about it. If you get a chance, check out the Trouble Notes. Look for their social media. If they're coming through where you are, 100% go to see them. It's going to be a fantastic show. They learned how to perform by busking, meaning they're out on the street and they're trying to capture an audience that very much does not want to be captured in most cases. They have figured out how to put on a show that will suck you in. So if you go out of your way to go to their show and you're there to see them, it's going to be even 10 times better than that. So yes, if you get a chance to see the Trouble Notes, find them on the internet. If they're in your area, go see them. They're incredible. You're going to love it. And tell Bennett I said, hey, and he owes me a beer for the commercial. So, all right. I will talk to you guys next week. Have a fantastic weekend. Go make a bunch of music. Go make a bunch of money and use it to buy violins. Okay.